The call came in at 4:53 a.m. Officer Malone's radio crackled with the dispatcher's voice, unusually tight with tension. Possible 1054 at 237 Oakwood Drive. A dead body. As dawn broke over the quiet neighborhood, the blue and red lights from patrol cars shattered the morning calm. Inside the modest two-story home, Malone found a scene that would haunt him for years. Officer Valerie Rockwell lay motionless on the living room floor, her service weapon still holstered at her side. Blood pooled beneath her body, stark against the pale carpet she'd installed just 3 months earlier. The room showed signs of a violent struggle: overturned furniture, shattered glass, and a framed photo of Valerie and her husband Donovan smashed against the wall. Her fingers were bruised, her knuckles scraped raw. Even in death, her face held an expression not of fear, but of determination. She had fought back. For 6 years, Officer Valerie Rockwell had walked the thin blue line, protecting strangers from the worst moments of their lives. She'd talked down armed suspects, comforted victims of violence, and faced daily dangers with unwavering courage. Her personnel file overflowed with commendations for bravery and compassion. Just last month, she'd rescued a child from an abusive home, carefully documenting every bruise to build an airtight case against the perpetrator. Yet the cruel irony hung heavy in that blood-stained living room. The woman who dedicated her life to shielding others from harm couldn't escape the violence within her own walls. The officer who knew every protocol for domestic abuse victims had become one herself. The hands that reached for her service weapon countless times to protect the public never drew it to save her own life. The system she upheld had failed to protect one of its own. How well do you really know what happens behind closed doors in your neighborhood? When violence erupts in the home of someone trained to handle life-threatening situations, what chance do ordinary citizens have? Right now, someone you know might be living a double life: respected professional by day, victim by night. This isn't just about a police officer who died tragically. This is about the warning signs that went unnoticed, the help that never came, and the questions we must ask ourselves. What secrets might your colleagues be hiding? Could you recognize the signs before it's too late? Stay with me to discover how this tragedy could have been prevented. Valerie Rockwell wasn't born to wear the badge. She earned it through grit and determination that defined her from childhood. Growing up in a middle-class household with her single mother, who worked double shifts as a nurse, Valerie learned early about sacrifice and service. Her high school teachers remembered her as the student who stepped between bullies and their targets, never hesitating to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. After graduating with a criminal justice degree, Valerie declined higher-paying private sector jobs to enter the police academy. She graduated second in her class, excelling in de-escalation techniques and community relations. Her first years on patrol revealed her natural talent for reading people in crisis, a skill that made her particularly effective with domestic violence calls. She knew how to talk to people on their worst days, recalled her field training officer. She could walk into chaos and create calm without drawing her weapon. By her 4th year, Valerie had been promoted to detective, specializing in cases involving vulnerable victims. Her case closure rate ranked among the department's highest, earning respect from colleagues who initially doubted the quiet, methodical woman with the steady gaze. What distinguished Valerie wasn't just her competence, but her compassion. She maintained contact with victims long after cases closed, connecting them with resources and checking on their recovery. Her personal phone contained dozens of messages from people whose lives she'd changed. A teenager rescued from trafficking, an elderly man saved from financial abuse, a mother who escaped violence with Valerie's help. To them, she wasn't just Officer Rockwell, she was their lifeline. When Valerie first met Donovan Price at a charity basketball game benefiting the Police Athletic League, his charisma filled the room. A former college athlete turned personal trainer, Donovan possessed an easy confidence and quick laugh that drew people to him. His physical presence, tall, fit, with expressive eyes, commanded attention, but it was his attentiveness that won Valerie's guarded heart. In those early days, Donovan listened with genuine interest to her stories from work. He brought her tea after difficult shifts and respected the long hours her job demanded. Friends commented on how he looked at her like she hung the moon, his pride in her accomplishments evident in every introduction. Donovan built his personal training business through dedication and relationship building. Clients praised his encouraging approach and personalized attention. Yet beneath his supportive exterior lay insecurities that emerged gradually. His fitness obsession intensified after losing a major client to a younger trainer. He began comparing himself to men half his age, scrutinizing his body with growing dissatisfaction. The first concerning shift came when Donovan's gym conversations fixated on performance and physique rather than health. His social media filled with fitness influencers promoting extreme results. The man who once celebrated balanced living began pushing limits, chasing an elusive physical ideal that constantly moved beyond reach. Their courtship unfolded with thoughtful gestures and deep conversations. Donovan cooked elaborate meals while Valerie shared stories from her day. They built a relationship on mutual respect. He admired her commitment to justice. She appreciated his dedication to helping others achieve their goals. Weekends found them hiking mountain trails or renovating their first small home. A fixer-upper they transformed with their complementary skills. Valerie handled the practical planning, while Donovan brought creative vision. At neighborhood gatherings, they moved in perfect sync, finishing each other's sentences and laughing at private jokes. Their wedding vows, exchanged 3 years after meeting, promised partnership through challenge and celebration. For the first 2 years of marriage, they fulfilled those promises. Donovan attended police functions proudly as Valerie's husband, comfortable in her professional world. Valerie participated enthusiastically in fitness events Donovan organized, connecting with his clients and colleagues. Friends described them as balanced. Valerie's methodical nature complemented Donovan's spontaneity. Her introversion found space alongside his outgoing personality. They navigated conflicts with respect, listening actively to each other's perspectives. The foundation of their relationship, communication, compromise, and celebration of differences, seemed unshakable. Yet within this solid structure, hairline fractures had begun to form, invisible but deepening with each passing month, waiting for pressure to reveal their true depth. Police departments function like tight-knit families, bound by shared danger and mutual protection. This brotherhood creates an unwritten code. Officers protect their own. While this solidarity saves lives in crisis situations, it can hide problems that desperately need addressing. The blue wall of silence operates as an invisible boundary between law enforcement and outsiders. Officers learn early that reporting a colleague's misconduct might label them a traitor. This loyalty creates a complex dynamic where protecting a fellow officer takes precedence over addressing concerning behavior. For Valerie, this culture presented a painful contradiction. Her commitment to justice meant upholding the law without exception. Yet department culture discouraged exposing problems within their ranks. When officers noticed concerning behavior from colleagues, excessive drinking, unusual aggression, or domestic troubles, the standard response was often quiet concern rather than formal intervention. "We saw changes in Donovan at department gatherings," a colleague later admitted. "His comments about Valerie became controlling, but we hesitated to step in. We told ourselves it wasn't our business." This protective silence extended beyond the department itself. Dispatchers, administrative staff, and even other officers' spouses often participated in this code, creating an environment where personal struggles remained hidden until they became catastrophic. For an officer experiencing domestic violence, this silence transformed from professional courtesy to dangerous isolation. Women in law enforcement navigate a unique minefield of expectations. They must demonstrate toughness without appearing harsh, show compassion without seeming weak, and constantly prove themselves in ways male counterparts rarely face. For Valerie, this balancing act extended into her personal life. She hesitated to report early warning signs in her marriage, fearing colleagues would question her judgment, or worse, her capability as an officer. "If I can't handle my own home, how can I handle the streets?" she once confided to a female colleague. Female officers often internalize the need to appear infallible. Department psychologists note that women on the force report domestic problems at significantly lower rates than civilian women, despite experiencing similar levels of abuse. The pressure to be exceptional creates a dangerous reluctance to acknowledge vulnerability. Additionally, female officers frequently face skepticism when reporting male misconduct, especially involving other officers or their spouses, creating barriers to seeking help that can prove fatal when violence escalates at home. The badge doesn't come off at the end of a shift. It reshapes family dynamics in profound ways. Police households operate with hypervigilance as standard practice. Officers trained to assess threats continuously bring this mindset home, often installing elaborate security systems and maintaining defensive habits that constrain relationships. For Valerie and Donovan, this heightened awareness created an unusual power dynamic. Her tactical training and legal authority conflicted with his desire for traditional masculine control. While some police spouses find comfort in their partner's protective capabilities, others feel diminished by them. Police families also develop distinctive communication patterns. Officers accustomed to command presence may struggle with collaborative decision-making at home. The emotional compartmentalization necessary for the job sometimes extends to personal relationships, creating distance where intimacy should flourish. Most critically, police families frequently isolate themselves, socializing primarily with other law enforcement families who understand their lifestyle. This isolation limits outside perspectives that might otherwise identify concerning relationship patterns before they become dangerous. The transformation began with seemingly innocent adjustments to Donovan's routines. His gym sessions stretched from 1 hour to 3, then 4. He installed a full-length mirror in their bedroom, spending mornings examining his physique with increasing criticism. His once balanced meals became precisely weighed portions of protein and complex carbohydrates, meticulously tracked in a fitness app. Conversations that once spanned books, films, and dreams narrowed to focus on body composition and fitness achievements. He began critiquing the bodies of strangers in public, whispering harsh judgments about their lack of discipline. Sleep patterns shifted as Donovan woke at 4 a.m. to fit in additional workouts. Dark circles formed under his eyes, yet his energy seemed unnaturally elevated. His normally steady hands developed a subtle tremor. Most telling was his changing relationship with his reflection, hours spent analyzing perceived flaws no one else could see. The man who once laughed at himself in photos now deleted images where his muscles didn't appear prominent enough, reshaping his digital identity to match an impossible ideal. The package arrived discreetly, ordered from an overseas pharmacy. Donovan explained the vials and needles to Valerie as vitamin injections and testosterone support for men his age. His research-backed justifications sounded reasonable. Declining natural hormone levels, recovery enhancement, medical supervision. All the top trainers use these supplements, he assured her. It's just giving my body the tools to maximize workouts. Nothing extreme. When Valerie expressed concern, he positioned her worries as outdated thinking. The stigma comes from people who don't understand modern fitness science. Each injection ritual carried an air of legitimate medical procedure. Donovan sanitized areas, measured doses carefully, and maintained detailed logs of administration times. He joined online forums where members normalized performance enhancement as necessary for competitive edge. The changes came gradually, increased muscle definition, faster recovery between workouts. His clients noticed his improved physique, requesting his secret. These compliments reinforced his choices, creating a feedback loop of validation that drowned out lingering concerns about side effects or escalating dependence. The first troubling incident occurred 6 months after Donovan began injections. When a restaurant server mixed up their orders, his response, slamming his fist on the table, voice rising to a shout, shocked both Valerie and nearby diners. The disproportionate anger dissolved as quickly as it erupted, leaving Donovan himself confused by his reaction. Late-night accusations began soon after. Valerie's text messages with male colleagues became subjects of intense interrogation. Her overtime shifts triggered questions laced with suspicion. When she received a commendation from her captain, Donovan's congratulations carried an undercurrent of resentment rather than pride. Physical intimacy transformed into performance rather than connection. Donovan tracked their sexual frequency on his fitness app alongside workout data, treating decreased intimacy as another metric to optimize rather than a relationship concern. Most alarming was the appearance of small puncture bruises on Valerie's arm after a minor disagreement about dinner plans. Marks from Donovan's grip that he didn't seem to notice leaving and later couldn't remember causing. What began as testosterone support evolved into complex cycles of multiple compounds. Donovan's medicine cabinet transformed into a pharmacy of vials, needles, and ancillary medications to counter side effects. His dosages doubled, then tripled beyond recommended limits as his tolerance increased and desired results diminished. Physical changes accelerated. Prominent veins mapped his enlarged muscles, acne appeared across his back and shoulders, and his jawline hardened from increased growth hormone. Weight fluctuations became extreme as he cycled between bulking and cutting phases, his body never reaching a state of equilibrium. The psychological effects proved more concerning. Sleep disturbances worsened. Valerie often woke to find Donovan pacing at 3 a.m., unable to quiet his racing thoughts. His emotional baseline shifted dramatically. Periods of euphoric confidence alternated with crushing irritability. Minor frustrations that once rolled off his back now triggered outbursts of rage. Medical complications emerged: elevated blood pressure, abnormal liver values, and concerning heart palpitations he dismissed as workout intensity. When a doctor suggested reducing his supplements, Donovan switched medical providers rather than modifying his regimen. Most significantly, the chemicals restructured his brain chemistry. The compassionate, patient man who had won Valerie's heart receded, replaced by someone who viewed every interaction through a lens of dominance, competition, and threat. A fundamental personality alteration driven by synthetic hormones flooding his system. Their once welcoming home transformed into a monument to Donovan's fixations. The garage became a private gym with equipment worth thousands. Kitchen cabinets overflowed with protein supplements and meal replacement powders. Shared spaces featured newly installed mirrors for Donovan to check his physique throughout the day. Everyday routines became battlegrounds. Meal preparation required Donovan's strict oversight. Cooking methods, ingredients, and portions, all potential triggers for conflict. House temperatures remained unnaturally low to accommodate his elevated body heat, leaving Valerie perpetually cold in her own home. Sleep became a luxury as Donovan's early workouts and late-night supplement schedules bookended each day. The bedroom television played bodybuilding competitions continuously, the competitors' physiques becoming silent third parties in their marriage. Privacy disappeared as Donovan implemented location tracking on Valerie's phone for safety and questioned her movements with increasing intensity. Her personal possessions underwent regular, unexplained reorganization. Her friends visited less frequently, uncomfortable with his interrogations about their conversations. Most telling was the transformation of their photo wall. Images of vacations, family gatherings, and casual moments together gradually disappeared, replaced by professional photographs of Donovan's physique progress. Their visual history as a couple slowly erased, making room for documentation of his physical evolution at the expense of their shared memories. Valerie approached the deteriorating situation as she would a hostage negotiation, with calm reason and active listening. "I'm concerned about the changes I'm seeing," she began during a rare quiet dinner. "Can we talk about what's happening to us?" Donovan's responses followed predictable patterns of deflection. Initial denial: "Nothing's different. You're overreacting," followed by projection: "You're the one being distant. Your job always comes first." Then minimization: "Every couple argues sometimes. This is normal." When Valerie suggested counseling, Donovan's rejection came swiftly. "We don't need strangers in our business. Besides, your department would find out and it would damage your career." This manipulation leveraged her professional concerns to avoid outside intervention. Her attempts to connect through shared activities met similar resistance. Hikes they once enjoyed became competitions Donovan needed to win. Movies were interrupted by his critiques of actors' physiques. Even conversations about current events twisted into monologues about fitness industry conspiracies. Most heartbreaking were Valerie's efforts to reach him through memory. "Remember our first apartment? How we stayed up talking all night?" These invocations of their history, once reliable bridges back to connection, now fell into silence. When she referenced their wedding vows during an argument, Donovan looked at her with momentary confusion, as though struggling to recall the man who had spoken those promises. Anabolic steroids are synthetic variations of testosterone, the primary male hormone responsible for muscle growth, bone density, and masculine characteristics. These compounds were originally developed for medical purposes, treating hormone deficiencies, muscle-wasting diseases, and delayed puberty. When used under physician supervision at therapeutic doses, these medications serve legitimate medical needs. However, when abused at doses 10 to 100 times higher than medical recommendations, these powerful compounds create profound physiological changes. They operate by binding to androgen receptors in muscle cells, increasing protein synthesis and accelerating tissue growth beyond natural limits. The human endocrine system functions through delicate feedback mechanisms. When external testosterone floods the body, the hypothalamus detects abnormally high hormone levels and signals the body to shut down natural production. This disruption affects multiple systems simultaneously: reproductive, cardiovascular, hepatic, and neurological. Beyond muscle growth, anabolic steroids alter cholesterol levels, increasing LDL, harmful, while decreasing HDL, protective cholesterol. Blood pressure rises as blood thickens and red cell production accelerates. The liver, tasked with processing these compounds, endures significant strain, often developing cysts or tumors with prolonged exposure. Most critically for Donovan, these substances cross the blood-brain barrier, altering neurotransmitter function and reshaping neural pathways, fundamentally changing how the brain processes emotional stimuli and regulates impulse control. The term roid rage describes extreme, unpredictable aggression associated with anabolic steroid abuse, sudden explosive outbursts disproportionate to triggering events. This phenomenon results from complex neurochemical changes rather than simple testosterone increases. Medical literature documents numerous cases. A 2019 study followed a 32-year-old bodybuilder who, after 8 weeks of high-dose steroid use, attacked his training partner over a minor equipment disagreement, breaking the man's jaw despite their 10-year friendship. The subject reported feeling possessed during the incident, with no ability to regulate his response. Another documented case involved a college athlete with no previous violent history who, during a steroid cycle, became enraged when a store clerk asked for identification, destroying merchandise and requiring 4 police officers to subdue him. Toxicology confirmed elevated steroid levels with no other substances present. Law enforcement records feature similar patterns. A personal trainer in Colorado, described by neighbors as unfailingly polite, strangled his girlfriend during an argument about dinner plans while taking 3 different anabolic compounds. Upon arrest, he appeared genuinely shocked by his actions, repeatedly stating he would never hurt anyone. These cases share key characteristics: sudden onset, extreme violence, emotional disconnection during episodes, and genuine confusion or remorse afterward. Precisely the pattern emerging in Donovan's behavior as his steroid use intensified. The behavioral changes from anabolic steroid abuse extend beyond rage episodes into pervasive psychological alterations. As multiple hormonal pathways destabilize, users experience profound mood disturbances operating on distinct timelines. During active use, many experience grandiosity and hyperconfidence, a feeling of invulnerability that clouds judgment. Paranoia emerges as the brain's threat detection systems become hypersensitive, interpreting neutral situations as challenging or dangerous. Normal social interactions transform into perceived tests of dominance. Emotional regulation deteriorates as steroids modify amygdala function, the brain region processing fear and anger. Users report emotional numbness alternating with overwhelming feelings they cannot control or understand. When steroid levels fluctuate between doses, withdrawal symptoms emerge: depression, anxiety, and increased irritability. This roller coaster creates perpetual emotional instability, particularly affecting intimate relationships where partners bear the brunt of these unpredictable shifts. Most users fail to connect these psychological changes to their steroid use, instead blaming external factors: work pressure, relationship problems, or others' behaviors, creating a dangerous cycle of escalating use and worsening symptoms that becomes increasingly difficult to interrupt. The foundation of Valerie and Donovan's marriage, emotional openness and mutual support, eroded gradually, replaced by a cold distance neither could bridge. Conversations that once lasted hours became functional exchanges about schedules and household matters. Their emotional language, once fluent with inside jokes and gentle references to shared history, devolved into stilted, careful phrases designed to avoid conflict rather than build connection. Valerie noticed Donovan no longer made eye contact during conversations, instead checking his reflection in nearby surfaces or scrolling through fitness accounts on his phone. His responses to her work stories, once engaged and supportive, became dismissive. "That's nice," or "sounds like a typical day." When she described a traumatic call involving a child victim, his response, "Can you pass the protein powder?" confirmed the depth of his emotional absence. Attempts to reconnect through shared memories met with blank stares or irritation. Planning their anniversary dinner, Valerie suggested the restaurant where they'd had their first date. Donovan responded, "Their menu has too many hidden calories," dismissing the sentimental value without acknowledgement. Most telling were family gatherings where relatives noticed the change. They sat together but existed separately, Valerie's mother later recalled. He checked his phone while she spoke. She stopped mid-sentence when she realized he wasn't listening. They occupied the same space without inhabiting the same emotional reality. Their physical relationship transformed from mutual pleasure to mechanical interaction. Donovan approached intimacy with the same performance metrics he applied to weightlifting, focused on frequency and duration rather than connection. Tender moments disappeared, replaced by encounters initiated without emotional context. Hormone fluctuations from steroid use created additional complications, periods of hypersexuality alternating with complete disinterest. These unpredictable shifts left Valerie feeling alternatively objectified and rejected, never knowing which version of her husband she would encounter. Emotional vulnerability, the cornerstone of true intimacy, vanished from their relationship. Donovan treated personal disclosures as weaknesses to be eliminated rather than connections to be nurtured. When Valerie shared fears or insecurities, he responded with criticism rather than comfort. The physical space between them expanded, separate sides of the couch, minimal touch during daily interactions, sleeping positions that avoided contact. Their bodies, once naturally gravitating toward each other, now maintained careful distance, physical manifestation of the emotional chasm growing between them. Their intimacy breakdown created a feedback loop of escalating tension. Donovan interpreted Valerie's emotional withdrawal as rejection, triggering insecurity he channeled into accusations. "You think you're too good for me now," he charged after she declined his advances following a 14-hour shift. Her exhaustion became personal affront in his distorted perception. Valerie's professional training in de-escalation paradoxically worsened home conflicts. Her calm responses to his outbursts, techniques effective with volatile suspects, registered to Donovan as condescension. "Stop talking to me like one of your criminals," became his common retort, rejecting her attempts at peaceful resolution. Their communication styles diverged fundamentally. Valerie sought to process conflicts through discussion, while Donovan's impaired emotional regulation demanded immediate resolution or abandonment of issues. This mismatch created a pattern where problems remained unaddressed, accumulating like toxic sediment beneath their daily interactions. Most dangerous was how intimacy issues merged with Donovan's steroid-fueled paranoia. Normal relationship disappointments transformed in his mind to evidence of betrayal. A missed call became deliberate avoidance. A late shift signaled infidelity. Emotional distance confirmed his darkest suspicions. The final weeks saw this pattern accelerate, each failed connection reinforcing his distorted worldview, each accusation pushing Valerie further away, creating the precise emotional abandonment he feared most, setting the stage for catastrophic violence when his fragile control finally shattered. October 17 brought an early frost to Westport. By 11 p.m., rain tapped against windows, while winds stripped the last autumn leaves from neighborhood trees. The Rockwell Price home stood dark except for the harsh blue glow of the basement television, where bodybuilding competitions played on mute. Empty protein shake containers cluttered the kitchen counter alongside a scattered array of pill bottles and supplement containers. The house carried an atmosphere of anticipation, like the waited pause before lightning strikes. Neighbors would later recall hearing weights dropping in the basement at odd intervals throughout the evening, the rhythmic clanging punctuated by occasional shouts. On the dining table sat Valerie's untouched dinner, a meal Donovan had prepared with mechanical precision, now cold and abandoned. Next to it, her department commendation letter remained half-read, the paper's edge crumpled as if grabbed in haste. The home security system displayed multiple arm-disarm cycles over the preceding hours, suggesting someone repeatedly checking the doors and windows despite the late hour. Valerie's 12-hour shift had drained her reserves. A domestic violence call had ended with a child in protective custody and his mother in the hospital, a situation that always left emotional residue. Her supervisor had noticed her distraction during debriefing, asking if everything was all right at home. She'd deflected with practiced ease. Driving home, she'd called her sister, leaving a message about possibly visiting for the weekend, just to catch up. Her patrol notebook contained a page of resources for officers in crisis, the corner folded down. In her locker remained printed apartment listings she'd collected during lunch break, a quiet contingency plan taking shape. Donovan had injected a new compound that morning, higher dosage, different formulation. Throughout the day, his pupils dilated and contracted as the chemicals surged through his system. His fitness tracker recorded an elevated heart rate sustained for hours, even during rest periods. Text messages to his training clients grew increasingly paranoid. He canceled all appointments, claiming people were sabotaging his progress. Social media posts from his account stopped suddenly after an erratic series of 3 a.m. updates questioning pharmaceutical companies and government regulation of supplements. Neighbors noticed him checking the street repeatedly, peering through blinds at passing cars. The home security camera footage showed him pacing, his movements jerky and unpredictable. Between workout sets, he checked his phone obsessively, scrolling through Valerie's social media accounts with intense focus. Most concerning was the kitchen knife he'd moved from its drawer to the counter beside his supplements, an unconscious preparation for a threat that existed only in his chemically altered perception of reality, waiting for a trigger to transform thought into catastrophic action. Valerie entered her home at 11:42 p.m., the doors creak announcing her arrival. She found Donovan in the kitchen, reorganizing his supplement containers with methodical intensity. Her quiet hello went unanswered. When she opened the refrigerator for water, he finally spoke. "Late shift again? Or were you somewhere else?" The question hung in the air, loaded with accusation. "Just paperwork. That case with the Thompson family needed—" "You smell like cologne." His voice hardened as he stepped closer, invading her space. "Department issue cologne?" "Donovan, I interviewed witnesses all evening in a cramped room. Whatever you're smelling, don't lie to me." He grabbed her phone from the counter, demanding her password. When she refused, he hurled it against the wall, shattering the screen. The argument escalated into a familiar pattern, his accusations, her attempts at de-escalation, his increasingly illogical connections between unrelated events. When she mentioned possibly staying with her sister for a few days, his face transformed. "You're planning to leave me?" His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You've been planning this for weeks." When Valerie moved toward the bedroom, he blocked her path. "We're not done talking." "I need space right now," she stated firmly, attempting to step around him. His arm shot out, gripping her wrist with crushing force. "Nobody walks away from me." Multiple psychological triggers converged in Donovan's mind that night, creating a perfect storm of volatility. The new steroid compound had dramatically altered his neurochemistry, reducing impulse control while amplifying emotional responses. His amygdala, the brain's fear center, operated in hyperdrive, interpreting Valerie's normal behaviors as threats requiring immediate defensive action. Perceived rejection activated his deepest insecurities. Each interaction filtered through a distorted lens, where Valerie's exhaustion registered as disgust with him. Her phone became evidence of betrayal. Her work commitment transformed into preference for others' company over his. The apartment listings she'd researched confirmed his fear of abandonment, the one threat his fragile ego couldn't tolerate. Territorial instincts, heightened by synthetic hormones, created an overwhelming drive to control his environment and the people within it. The chemical cocktail in his bloodstream disrupted the brain regions responsible for rational thought, leaving the primitive, reactive brain in command of his actions. Most critically, intimate partner violence often escalates when the abuser senses losing control. Valerie's boundary setting, Her refusal to surrender her phone, her stated need for space, challenged his dominance directly. In his altered mental state, this represented an intolerable power shift requiring immediate correction through physical force. The cumulative weight of these triggers demolished the already weakened barriers between Donovan's violent thoughts and actions, setting the stage for the devastating moment to follow. Valerie recognized the point of no return in Donovan's eyes, a vacant look replacing the man she knew, pupils constricted to pinpoints despite the dim light. She reverted to police training, using a defensive maneuver to break his grip and create distance. "Don't touch me again," she commanded, voice steady despite her racing pulse. "This stops now." Something in her tone, authoritative, unafraid, shattered his last restraint. He lunged forward, seizing her throat with both hands. The attack came with such speed that her trained responses couldn't engage. Her back slammed against the wall, family photos crashing to the floor around them. "You think you're better than me?" he growled, faces inches apart. "You think anyone will want you?" As oxygen depleted, Valerie's defensive training activated. She struck his windpipe with precision, momentarily breaking his hold. Gasping for air, she pushed past him toward the door, survival instinct overriding everything else. His recovery came faster than possible for someone without chemical enhancement. He grabbed the kitchen knife and closed the distance in 3 rapid strides. The first thrust caught her mid-turn, the blade finding the vulnerable space beneath her ribs. Time dilated in that critical moment. Their eyes met in mutual shock, hers in disbelief that the boundary had finally been crossed, his in momentary recognition of what he'd done before rage consumed rational thought completely. Officers Martinez and Reynolds arrived at 4:53 a.m., responding to a neighbor's call about shouting, followed by an extended silence that felt wrong. They recognized the address immediately. One of their own lived there. The front door stood ajar, dark hallway beyond. Their flashlight beams caught glass fragments scattered across hardwood floors before revealing Valerie's body. Martinez's radio transmission, "Officer down, 237 Oakwood," brought every available unit racing to the scene. Reynolds, Valerie's academy classmate, maintained scene preservation with mechanical precision while struggling to reconcile the professionally processed evidence with the friend lying motionless before him. "It was like watching myself move through someone else's nightmare," he later testified. News traveled through the department with devastating efficiency. Off-duty officers arrived in civilian clothes, forming a solemn perimeter around the property. The police chief appeared ashen-faced, ordering immediate protective details for all officers' families until they confirmed whether this was targeted violence against law enforcement. Headquarters transformed within hours. Maps tracked Donovan's potential locations, evidence boards filled with timeline details. The department chaplain established a quiet room where colleagues processed their grief between investigation tasks. Outside, neighbors gathered beyond the yellow tape, many in bathrobes and slippers, watching the grim choreography of crime scene technicians entering and exiting the home. Local news vans arrived by dawn, cameras capturing the growing collection of flowers already accumulating near the property edge. Most revealing was the response of Valerie's domestic violence victims, women she'd helped escape dangerous relationships. They appeared at the station throughout the day, offering tearful statements about an officer who recognized danger signs others missed, their stories painting a tragic portrait of expertise that couldn't save herself. The investigation proceeded with unusual intensity. Every detective volunteered, creating round-the-clock coverage. Forensic technicians processed evidence with meticulous care, knowing any oversight might compromise justice for one of their own. Security footage from neighboring homes created a timeline of Donovan's movements, his 3 a.m. departure captured on 3 separate cameras. His abandoned vehicle appeared by noon, discovered at a bus terminal 50 miles north. Credit card records showed a cash withdrawal minutes before cameras lost his trail. In the basement gym, investigators documented a chaotic scene, weights scattered across the floor, mirrors shattered, and a collection of unmarked vials requiring specialized toxicology analysis. His phone contained hundreds of screenshots of Valerie's text messages and location history. Most revealing was the journal found in Donovan's gym bag, handwritten entries documenting increasing paranoia, dosage adjustments, and disturbing fantasies of control. The final entry, dated the previous morning, contained a single line. "She's planning something. I can see it in her eyes." Crime scene analysis revealed the confrontation's brutal progression through blood pattern distribution and physical evidence. The initial struggle began in the kitchen, where broken ceramic and overturned furniture indicated Valerie's defensive maneuvers. Blood droplets created a trail showing her attempted escape route toward the front door. Defensive wounds on Valerie's hands and forearms demonstrated her trained response to the attack. Bruising patterns on her neck matched Donovan's hand size and grip strength. The fatal wounds, 3 knife strikes to the torso, showed increasing force, the final thrust penetrating with enough power to damage the underlying floorboards when she fell. Medical examiner findings established a timeline through body temperature and blood coagulation. Death occurred between midnight and 1:30 a.m., approximately 3 hours before discovery. Bloody footprints throughout the home mapped Donovan's movements afterward, his methodical search through Valerie's belongings, his shower to remove evidence, and his final exit through the garage. Most telling were the impression marks on Valerie's service weapon, still secured in its lockbox. Tool marks indicated repeated attempts to access it before Donovan abandoned the effort. Her department badge had been removed from her wallet and placed beside her body, a final gesture whose meaning investigators still debate. Remorse, mockery, or something more complex? Laboratory analysis of samples from Donovan's home revealed an extensive performance enhancement regimen. The unmarked vials contained testosterone cypionate at concentrations 5 times pharmaceutical grade, alongside trenbolone acetate and nandrolone decanoate, compounds banned outside strict medical applications due to their psychological side effects. Blood residue on injection equipment matched Donovan's DNA, with needle disposal patterns suggesting daily administration. Calendar notations confirmed escalating dosages over the preceding months, with a significant increase the week before the homicide. Most alarming were toxicology results from Donovan's abandoned gym bag, containing his sweat-soaked towel. Analysis detected abnormally high concentrations of multiple compounds, including methyltestosterone, a substance known for causing explosive aggression and paranoid ideation. The medical examiner's report highlighted the significant finding. Subjects' hormone levels exceeded 20 times normal physiological range, creating conditions consistent with extreme neurotransmitter disruption and impaired impulse control. These levels align with documented cases where previously nonviolent individuals exhibited sudden, extreme aggression, resulting in homicidal behavior. Donovan's devices contained a digital chronicle of mounting obsession. His search history revealed progression from fitness forums to anonymous message boards discussing surveillance techniques and accusations of infidelity. Camera applications on his phone stored thousands of images, Valerie entering her workplace, meeting colleagues, and performing routine activities, all time-stamped and cataloged. Text message archives showed his communication style transforming over months. Early messages featured affectionate exchanges and supportive comments. Recent communications displayed one-word responses, accusatory questions, and demands for her whereabouts. Most revelatory was the hidden application discovered on Valerie's phone, spyware installed without her knowledge, forwarding her communications, location data, and photos to Donovan's devices. Timestamp analysis showed he often reviewed this information for hours each night. Valerie's private communications told their own story. Messages to her sister mentioned walking on eggshells and not recognizing him anymore. Her final text to a colleague sent hours before her death read simply, "If I don't make it tomorrow, the packet in my locker explains everything." Fellow officers witnessed the warning signs months before Valerie's death. Officer Jensen observed Donovan checking Valerie's patrol car mileage after shifts. Sergeant Rivera recalled Donovan appearing unannounced at crime scenes, questioning male officers who worked with his wife. During the department holiday party, Detective Morales overheard Donovan berating Valerie in the parking lot, his voice carrying through closed windows. When Morales approached, Donovan's demeanor instantly shifted to jovial charm. The next day, Valerie explained away her red eyes as allergies. Lieutenant Wilson noticed bruising on Valerie's wrist during firearms recertification. When questioned, she attributed it to a training exercise, an explanation her experienced supervisor recognized as improbable but didn't challenge. Most haunting was dispatch operator Garcia's testimony. Valerie called the non-emergency line twice from her personal phone, hanging up both times when asked her location. I should have flagged it, but assumed she dialed accidentally. Now I understand she was testing response times to her neighborhood, planning for what she feared might happen. The department's policies created perfect barriers to protection. The Confidential Assistance Program required officers to use department computers to schedule appointments, computers monitored by supervisors tracking productivity. This removed any practical anonymity, deterring those needing help. Department culture equated requesting assistance with professional weakness. Officers seeking mental health services found their assignments subtly shifting away from tactical teams toward administrative roles, an unofficial but widely recognized penalty. The Domestic Violence Response Protocol, robust for civilian cases, contained critical exceptions for officer-involved situations. These cases required higher authorization levels before action, creating dangerous delays and allowing for informal resolution attempts before official intervention. Most problematic was the unwritten practice of professional courtesy, officers informally warning colleagues about complaints rather than following standard procedure. This practice, intended to protect officers from frivolous complaints, created a deadly loophole when the threat lived within an officer's home. The system designed to help civilians in danger systematically excluded its own protectors when they faced identical threats. The failure to protect Valerie resulted from a perfect storm of professional blind spots, misplaced loyalty, and institutional denial. Law enforcement agencies train officers to recognize domestic violence indicators, but fail to acknowledge how these dynamics function differently when the victim carries a badge. First, the psychological screening process for officers created a false sense of security. The assumption that individuals who pass rigorous hiring standards remain emotionally stable throughout their careers and personal lives. This misconception led colleagues to dismiss behavioral changes in Donovan as temporary stress rather than dangerous deterioration. Second, department ranking structures discourage lateral intervention. Officers witnessing concerning behavior hesitated to approach superiors about a colleague's personal life without absolute proof of wrongdoing. This created an accountability gap where everyone assumed someone else would address the situation. Third, the cultural emphasis on privacy within police families established an invisible boundary around off-duty behavior. The same officers who would immediately intervene if witnessing identical behavior between civilians repeatedly categorized Donovan's actions as marital issues rather than emerging violence. Most fundamentally, the department's identity as protectors created collective denial about vulnerability within their ranks. Acknowledging that a fellow officer faced danger at home required confronting an uncomfortable truth. Carrying a badge provided no immunity from becoming a victim, a reality too threatening to the psychological armor necessary for daily duty. Forensic psychologist Dr. Eleanor Marsh identified Donovan's case as textbook narcissistic injury escalation. She explained, the combination of performance-enhancing drugs and perceived rejection creates a particularly volatile reaction. His self-worth became entirely dependent on physical appearance and dominance, making Valerie's independence intolerable to his fragile ego. Criminal profiler Martin Keller noted the calculated aspects beneath emotional chaos. The surveillance, tracking, and isolation tactics show methodical control efforts preceding the violence. These behaviors reveal premeditation, regardless of the final explosive trigger. Neuropsychiatrist Dr. Way examined Donovan's brain activity patterns through comparable cases. Anabolic steroids fundamentally alter threat perception. The amygdala, our fear center, becomes hyperactive while the prefrontal cortex, responsible for impulse control, shows decreased function. This creates a brain primed for aggression, perceiving threats where none exist. Most significant was trauma specialist Rivera's assessment. Valerie displayed classic victim adaptation, using professional skills to manage escalating danger. Believing her training provided protection, ordinary victims lack, a tragic miscalculation that delayed her seeking help. The relationship between steroid abuse and domestic violence follows distinctive patterns unlike those involving alcohol or stimulants. While intoxicants like alcohol reduce inhibition, anabolic steroids fundamentally reshape personality over time through hormonal reconfiguration. Domestic violence behind respectable facades often goes undetected longer than in other environments. Professional couples like Valerie and Donovan benefit from presumptions of stability that discourage outside intervention. Their education, career success, and public image create a protective barrier against suspicion, even as danger escalates behind closed doors. This case exposes how victims in helping professions face unique challenges. Their expertise in crisis management can become a liability when they apply professional objectivity to personal danger, attempting to reason with situations that demand immediate escape. The community perception of perfect couples creates additional isolation. Neighbors hesitate to report concerning behaviors from households they view as exemplary. Friends dismiss troubling interactions as temporary stress rather than emerging patterns of control. Most revealing is how perpetrators with community standing manipulate public perception. Donovan actively cultivated an image of supportive husband while simultaneously monitoring, controlling, and eventually killing his wife, demonstrating how external appearance can completely contradict private reality and how effectively abusers can compartmentalize behavior. Recognizing early warning signs could save lives in similar situations. Pay attention to these indicators. Monitoring behaviors escalating beyond normal interest. Tracking apps, unexpected appearances, demanding immediate responses to messages, checking mileage or timestamps. Isolation techniques that seem protective but restrict freedom, offering rides everywhere, discouraging independent activities, criticizing friends and family, making social gatherings uncomfortable. Technology as control tools, installing cameras for security, requiring location sharing, password demands, scrolling through phones, reading private messages. Physical changes indicating possible steroid use, rapid muscle development, unusual acne, extreme mood swings, aggression disproportionate to situations, disturbed sleep patterns. Personality transformations, previously kind partners becoming hypercritical, once patient people displaying sudden rage, empathetic individuals showing indifference to others' feelings, property destruction during arguments, breaking phones, punching walls, throwing objects, damaging sentimental items, financial control mechanisms, questioning purchases, restricting access to accounts, creating financial dependence. Most important, trust changes in behavior over explanations. When someone who once showed consistent respect begins displaying these patterns, the shift itself is the warning, regardless of justifications offered. For anyone recognizing these patterns in their relationship, consider these critical steps. Create documentation without risking detection. Email yourself incidents with dates from work computers, leave notes with trusted friends, or use apps disguised as normal utilities that record evidence securely. Develop a safety plan before announcing intentions to leave. Identify safe locations, gather essential documents, establish emergency signals with trusted contacts, and secure transportation options. Recognize the highest risk period occurs during separation attempts. Plan departures during the abuser's predictable absences, not following confrontations. Utilize resources specifically designed for your situation. Professional organizations often have confidential assistance programs separate from workplace resources to avoid exposure. Understand that controlling partners rarely change without specialized intervention. Good moments between incidents don't indicate permanent improvement. They're part of the cycle maintaining the relationship. Most crucially, remember that domestic violence escalates over time. What seems manageable now will likely intensify, making early intervention essential despite the difficulty of acknowledging the situation. The tragedy of Valerie and Donovan reveals uncomfortable truths about the homes we pass each day. Behind manicured lawns and respectable careers, battles rage unseen. Every community harbors similar stories unfolding in real time, some still preventable. Consider the relationships in your own circle. Which friends have gradually disappeared from gatherings? Whose partner seems excessively concerned about their whereabouts? Which couple's dynamic shifts noticeably when they're together versus apart? How many warning signs do we dismiss as not our business until tragedy transforms them into obvious clues? What private hells might be endured by those who project perfect public images? Most disturbing, Could someone in your life be silently fighting for survival while you scroll past their carefully curated social media posts? Might someone be monitoring their partner's every move while laughing beside you at dinner? The most dangerous assumption we make about domestic violence is believing we would recognize it. The deadliest myths are that it couldn't happen to people like us, or people we know. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on why. Have you witnessed concerning behavior in relationships around you? Share your observations in the comments. Your perspective might help someone recognize their own situation. For those who've experienced similar warning signs, you're not alone. Our community offers support and understanding. Subscribe to join conversations that could save lives. Did you spot the early red flags in Donovan's behavior? Hit like if you identified the moment when intervention might have changed this outcome. These awareness skills matter. Know someone who needs this information. Sharing could be your most important act today. Domestic violence thrives in silence. Breaking that silence starts with education. Have you encountered steroid abuse impacting personalities and relationships? Your story matters. Comment below about changes you've witnessed in loved ones. This channel explores these hidden dangers, not for entertainment, but because understanding them creates safer communities. Join us by subscribing. Together we can recognize tomorrow's headlines while they're still preventable today. Tonight, as you move through your home, notice the ordinary moments. Keys dropped on counters, casual conversations about dinner plans, the weight of your partner beside you on the couch. For Valerie, these everyday scenes transformed into a battlefield where hypervigilance became normal and danger assessment became constant. Somewhere in your community right now, someone is calculating how their next words might trigger violence. Someone is measuring the distance to the door. Someone is wondering if tonight is the night everything changes. They could be anyone you know. They could be someone wearing a badge, trained to protect others but unable to save themselves.